everyone. Welcome to Diabetes Awareness Month, November of 2021. And you probably know me as a familiar face if you watch Lindsay's channel and my channel, but I was asked by Lindsay to share my diagnosis story for a special project she was creating for Diabetes Awareness Month. So I'm super excited and honored to be sharing my diagnosis story again in a little bit more of an abridged version than when I originally shared on my channel 3 years ago. So this is coming from 3 years of memories, and it's still very ingrained in my head, kind of all the symptoms that I went through prior to me being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So for those of you who don't know me or don't really recognize my face, my name is Maddie. I have a YouTube channel with my name, Maddie Nielsen, and I have almost 2,600 subscribers. And I'm incredibly thankful and blessed that you are here today watching my video. A little bit about me. I just graduated from dental hygiene school this year. I live in Wisconsin, and I've been practicing as a registered dental hygienist for a couple of months, and I absolutely love my job. So I'm all in the dental field, so if you have any dental questions, feel free to throw them out down below. Otherwise, I am so looking forward to sharing my diagnosis story with you, so I hope you enjoy. And I kind of think it's cool that I'm doing it again because I feel like coming from 3 years perspective, I have a little bit more, I guess, of a kind of grateful, thankful attitude of like everything I went through and the person I've become today, and kind of how it shaped me into how I look at things in life differently than maybe what I used to before I was diagnosed. So anyways, with that being said, let me jump right into my diagnosis story. Again, I'm going to keep this as short and as concise as possible. Number one, so that I don't go off on a tangent, but number two, this makes it easier on Lindsay to edit and keep up on her YouTube channel and not bog the internet down too much. So anyways, so I started having diabetes warning signs, ironically, 2 to 3 months before I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed in July of 2018. So like April, May-ish is when I started experiencing the first warning signs that I had something with diabetes, that something wasn't quite right. And that first warning sign for me was a vaginal yeast infection, believe it or not. Now this yeast infection came and it went because I treated it with Monistat, but then it reoccurred in May and June, and I'm thinking, what in the world's going on? So I kind of chalked it up to thinking, oh, I changed laundry soap, maybe I just had a weird period or something just odd kind of shaped that yeast infection. I'm thinking it's just something weird, right? And my mom and I thought the same thing, like, what's going on? So that kind of came and went, but then May and June, like maybe 4 to 6 weeks before I was diagnosed, I started noticing that I was drinking a lot of water. I was starting to get a little bit tired. And then towards the end, like end of June, beginning of July, I was going to the bathroom like every hour on the hour, or maybe half an hour on every half an hour, and literally could not stop urinating, could not stop drinking. I was getting so desperate for water that I was drinking out of a hose, believe it or not, outside of my grandma's yard. And I kind of still laugh to this day because I'm like, that's kind of interesting, like how desperate your body gets when you go through something that's like metabolically not right. Like you like show all these symptoms and you don't really realize what's going on until like you would further investigate. So I was progressively getting more and more thirsty, drinking a lot, peeing a lot. All of a sudden then I had dropped a bunch of weight right before I was diagnosed. I went from 160 pounds down to like 130 pounds within the matter of a couple of weeks because of how much body fluid I was losing, how much ketones I was spilling from my body burning body fat, and it just wasn't a healthy cycle. And I literally, had no idea what was going on until like maybe like a few days before I went into the hospital. I started Googling my symptoms, which really isn't a smart idea. I don't really recommend that, but after my mom was like, you're going to the bathroom an awful lot and you're drinking an awful lot of water, are you sure you don't have diabetes? And in my head I'm thinking, there's no way in heck I have diabetes. Like, I know type 1 diabetes is in my family. My dad's sister has it as well as a cousin has it, but it wasn't like a direct relation, and I really didn't think like, oh, it's not gonna happen to me, right? Like, how could it be diabetes? Like, how could I have diabetes? And in my head I'm thinking like type 2, like I'm not overweight, like I don't really have a poor diet, so like, and I have no other comorbidities, so I'm like, what type of diabetes in the world could I possibly have beyond, type 1 or some sort of other weird form of diabetes? Anyways, I got so progressively sick right before I was diagnosed because I was in what we call DKA, which is called diabetic ketoacidosis. And what that basically means is your blood sugar levels go so high that your body starts burning fat for energy. And then what happens is when you burn fat for energy, fat is broken down into molecules, what we call ketones, and those are the things that you test for in your urine when your blood sugar goes high. So what ketones do is they can pile up so much in your blood that it turns your blood super acidic. Your blood naturally is basic, meaning the pH of that level is like 7.35 to 7.45. When your pH of your blood goes to like 7.0 or less, that means that you have very acidic blood. And acidic blood in your body is basically like poison running through your veins and can do a lot of damage to your organs. It can cause you to go into a coma and even death. So DKA is extremely deadly if you don't take care of it. So right before I was like actually in the hospital diagnosed, I was getting super sick. So I remember my stomach feeling like it was on fire. I literally was so weak and shaky that I couldn't even get up off the couch. I remember my skin was turning gray. I went to church like the night before I was diagnosed, and then I remember my mom having to hold my back and hold me still because I looked like I was weebling and wobbling and waddling up to get communion in my church, and it just wasn't healthy. And even people behind us that knew us in the pew said, "Oh my God, what happened to your daughter? Is she okay? Last week she was sick." And I remember my mom saying, as a matter of fact, we took her into the ER last week and she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and this is something she'll have for life. So a lot of other people were seeing how sick I was. I was feeling how sick I was, but I didn't go in right away because my symptoms were semi-mild until the very end. And unfortunately, that's what diabetes portrays, is it gets super mild right until the end. So then I went on that Sunday early afternoon after my grandma saw how weak I was. She called my mom from work and said, "We are taking your daughter to the hospital and we are taking her now. It looks like she's ready to die." Little did I know how close to death I was. So now that I'm at the hospital, I'm laying in the bed. They took my blood pressure. It was super high. It was like 180 over 90. The nurse goes, "You really don't feel good." I said, "No, there's something totally wrong with me. Like, a blood pressure that high is not healthy for a 19-year-old female who otherwise is healthy." So she starts asking me all these questions and symptoms and what I've been going through, and I've been telling her, I've been peeing a lot, drinking a lot, losing weight, feeling fatigued, XYZ. And she's like starting to put this all together in her head. And I still give credit to the nurse who diagnosed me with diabetes. She saved my life. She saved my life. And I still to this day cannot thank her enough. Anyway, she's like, "I'm going to go right back and get a glucometer here." So they put the IVs in me or whatever. They took blood out of my veins and it was so dark. It was darker than what normal venous blood looks like. It was like super thick, like it didn't look healthy. Something was wrong. It was so slow moving. It was like thick syrup. There's my cat's tail. Anyways, she pulled out the glucometer and took a blood sample and put on the blood sample, and within 30 seconds the number flashed, and that number read 513 milligrams per deciliter, which, if you want to convert that to millimoles, it's 28.5 millimoles, which was my blood sugar was at diagnosis. In an instant, she goes, 513 is obviously way too high. So she said, "At this rate, I would say you have diabetes. There's no doubt about it. And we're going to go ahead and get you some insulin stat here." It's literally what she told. I need insulin, and I need insulin now. So they put my insulin in an IV. They pumped me full of fluids. The ER doctor came in and said to me that if I would have not came in, or if I even would have came in maybe 2 hours later, that I probably would have died from severe dehydration. My kidneys were beginning to shut down. I was peeing out so much protein. My urine was starting to turn foamy. And I was in the progression of my renal function was starting to drop because of how dehydrated I was. They estimated I was missing 7 to 8 liters of body fluid, which for someone who is 5'7" and normally 150 to 155 pounds, you can only imagine that I basically lost all my body fluid because my body was trying to flush out all that excess sugar. The doctor had said, yes, my blood sugar was very high, but he said, "I've seen higher, and most likely I would have expected death for you to come within a couple hours due to just severe dehydration. If not, you probably would have been at least in a coma, if not dead." So he said, "It's a good thing you came in when you did, because if you would have came in any later or waited any longer, you probably would not be here." And to this day, that still resonates in my head that like I was this close to meeting my maker. So after I was in the ER for a while, they had transferred me up to ICU because I was so severely dehydrated that the DKA process was kind of moderately progressing. They wanted to put me up in ICU so they could reverse it. And at that point, they literally kept me there for a couple of days. I got trained on how to give myself injections, how to check my blood sugar, you know, kind of the ins and outs of what type 1 diabetes was. And truly, it's not my fault. Type 1 diabetes, as you all know, is an autoimmune disease in which your pancreas no longer can produce insulin to regulate your blood sugar levels for you. So we, as type 1 diabetics, have to exogenally or externally, that's another fancy word, take insulin via a pump or injection so that we can regulate our blood sugars to the best of our ability. So when I was a couple days into the ICU, they had to pump potassium in my veins because of everything I went through with DKA. It kind of messed up my potassium levels a little bit. And let me tell you, that is the most painful thing that you will ever have pumped into your veins. I do not recommend it. If you don't have to go through it, do not get potassium pumped in your veins. So anyways, there's my cat's tail again. But I saw a dietitian, I saw an ER doctor, I saw a whole bunch of other things. They got me sent over to endocrinology, and from there I learned how to take care of myself, and I gave myself my first injections, and I felt really confident how to manage my blood sugars and go home. So I was sent home with, you know, at the time it was Basaglar, Humalog, as well as a one-touch variometer, and I basically managed diabetes. And from that point I went through a couple transitions. I had the Omnipod Dash insulin pump, and now I currently have the Tandem t:slim X2 with Control IQ, as well as the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. So I have pretty much diabetes in a auto function to a certain degree. It's not 100% there. I still have to do some manual things, or override it if I don't feel confident in that the auto system is doing. So that's my story and kind of how I was diagnosed. Again, I know I went super fast and really quick, but my diagnosis I truly had all the classic warning signs without even really realizing it, as well as how quickly things progressed into DKA. I cannot emphasize it enough. If you have any of the warning signs of diabetes, which includes being tired, thirsty, going to the toilet a lot, and losing a lot of weight, they call it the 4 T's, tired, thirsty, toilet, thin. If you have any of those symptoms, please go to a doctor. I cannot emphasize it enough. If you don't, type 1 diabetes can literally kill you. It can literally put you into a coma. It can kill you. And as far as I'm concerned, diabetes is a hard thing to live with. But once you get used to it and learn to accept it as part of you and not the whole story, you can get around anything. And I was actually very happy that I found a diagnosis when I was in the hospital. I literally told the doctor, I said, I thought you were going to tell me that I was full of cancer and that I only had a few months to live. So I was thankful that once I heard I had type 1 diabetes, that I knew it would be manageable with a little bit of hard work and, of course, a lot of insulin. So anyways, that is my story. I'm not going to go too much more into detail, but if you want to check out my channel, you're more than welcome to. It's Maddie Nielsen. I go more into the scientific side of diabetes, as well as I'm trying to incorporate some more dental-related videos because that's truly another passion of mine, and to really expand beyond living with diabetes and just showing that like living and doing anything you want with diabetes is possible. So do not let anything stop you. I went through dental hygiene school with diabetes and survived and did well for myself. So you can do anything you want as long as you put your mind to it and you know how to take care of your blood sugars. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to Lindsay's channel. She does an amazing job advocating for diabetes. And she was one of the first people that really inspired me to create my own channel. And what I love about all type 1 diabetes YouTube channels is that we all share one experience living with our autoimmune diseases, but my experience is different from Lindsay's, is different from Michelle Lord's, for example, is different from anybody's. So it's so unique when we get to share those experiences and we get to learn from each other and grow together as a community. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of Diabetes Awareness Month and that you're doing well. Stay tuned over on my channel. I've got a lot more things coming out, as I assume Lindsay does as well. So until next time, take care, God bless, and as my shirt says, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. I love you all so much. Keep on keeping on if you're a diabetic, and I'd be curious to know about any of your blood sugars and diagnosis stories, so feel free to comment a short thing down below just to keep the interaction going, and I'll try to respond and thumbs up as many comments as I can here on Lindsay's videos. So I will see you guys over on my channel. Thanks again, Lindsay, for having me do this. You have no idea how much I appreciate this honor. So anyways, take care, everybody. Love y'all. Bye-bye.